"Don't touch anything," Maria hissed as her daughter's small hand reached for the scattered papers, but 7-year-old Emily had already seen the glaring error in the financial documents, an error that would collapse a $500 million empire by morning. What happened next would change everything, but nobody could have predicted the price they'd all pay for salvation. Before we start, let's create a wave of positivity. If you'd like, share a word that describes how you're feeling today. Please like this video and follow our channel if you want to be part of our community. "Mama, I'm hungry." Emily's voice was barely a whisper, her small fingers clutching her worn dress. Maria Lopez felt that familiar ache in her chest, the one that came with knowing she couldn't provide what her child deserved. "Just one more office to clean, mi corazón." Maria forced a smile, pushing her cart toward the last door in the executive corridor of Montgomery Investments. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Emily should be at home with a babysitter. But the school had closed early due to a water main break, and Maria couldn't afford to miss work. Single mothers didn't have the luxury of emergencies. Maria inserted her keycard into the slot of the massive corner office. The door opened, revealing a space larger than their entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the glittering New York skyline. "Wow," Emily breathed. "This is where a king works?" Maria smiled. "Not a king, Mia, just a very rich man." "Is he nice?" Emily asked, stepping carefully into the enormous office. Maria hesitated. In 3 years of cleaning his office, she had only encountered Jackson Montgomery a handful of times. He wasn't cruel, exactly, just distant, the kind of man who looked through people like her rather than at them. "He's busy," Maria finally answered. "Now sit here quietly and color while I clean. Don't touch anything, understand?" As Maria began her routine, she noticed something unusual. The office showed signs of chaos. Coffee stains on documents, files strewn across the desk, a crystal tumbler with the remnants of expensive whiskey. "Mama!" Emily called suddenly. "There are lots of numbers on those papers." Maria glanced over and felt her stomach drop. Emily had abandoned her coloring book and was standing beside Jackson's desk, her curious eyes scanning the documents. "Emily, what did I just tell you?" Maria rushed over. "These are Mr. Montgomery's private papers. We don't touch anything on his desk, ever." "But the numbers are wrong," Emily said simply. Maria blinked. "What do you mean, wrong?" "These numbers here," Emily pointed without touching, "they don't add up right." The sound of her phone ringing startled them both. Maria recognized her sister's number. "I need to take this," she told Emily firmly. "Stay in your chair. Don't move. Don't touch anything." Inside the office, Emily sat quietly for exactly 47 seconds before the numbers on the desk began calling to her again. They were like a puzzle with pieces in the wrong places. She approached the desk, careful not to touch anything. The top page was filled with columns of figures, with red circles and frustrated notations. Emily spotted the problem immediately. Someone had put a decimal point in the wrong place. The door suddenly swung open wider, and Emily jumped back. A tall man with silver-streaked dark hair and a face etched with exhaustion stormed into the office. He stopped abruptly when he saw Emily. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. Before she could answer, Maria rushed in behind him. "Mr. Montgomery, I'm so sorry." Maria's face had drained of color. "This is my daughter, Emily. Her school closed early, and I had no choice but to bring her." Jackson Montgomery's piercing blue eyes shifted from Maria to Emily, then to his desk. "Were you touching my documents?" he asked Emily directly, his voice dangerously quiet. Emily looked at her mother, then back at Mr. Montgomery. "No, sir, but they're wrong." "Emily!" Maria gasped. "What did you say?" Jackson stepped closer. "The numbers on your papers, they're wrong. Someone put the decimal point in the wrong place on the top page, and then all the other math is wrong too." The office fell silent. Jackson stared at the little girl, then at the documents on his desk. the same documents his entire financial team had been analyzing for weeks. "Show me," he said finally. The next morning, Maria stood at her kitchen counter, stirring instant coffee into a chipped mug with trembling hands. She hadn't slept, replaying the events in Jackson Montgomery's office. Emily pointing out the error, the billionaire's shocked face, the urgent phone calls. After his calls, Montgomery had questioned Emily for 30 minutes, testing her with impromptu math problems. Each time, Emily answered with quiet confidence that both amazed and frightened Maria. Where had this gift come from? Before they left, Montgomery had pressed 5 crisp $100 bills into Maria's hand and asked for her phone number. "I'll be in touch," he'd said, his eyes fixed on Emily with unsettling intensity. The money now sat untouched on the counter. Maria hadn't decided whether to keep it. "Mama, can I have cereal?" Emily padded into their tiny kitchen. Maria forced a smile. "Of course, Mija." She reached for their last box of generic cornflakes, mentally calculating how long it would need to last. If she skipped breakfast herself, they could stretch it another few days. "Are you mad at me about yesterday?" Emily asked. "No, I'm not mad, but I was scared. Mr. Montgomery is a very important man, and his papers are private." "But I helped him," Emily said. "He said I did good." "Did well," Maria corrected automatically. "And yes, you did, but—" Her phone rang, interrupting her. An unknown number. Maria hesitated before answering. "Mrs. Lopez, this is Jackson Montgomery." Maria's hand tightened around the phone. "Yes, Mr. Montgomery? I need to meet with you and Emily today. It's important." His voice was clipped. "Can you come to my office at noon?" "Sir, I'm working until 5. I've already spoken to your supervisor. You've been given the day off with pay." A pause. "This is important, Mrs. Lopez. For all of us." At precisely 11:30, a sleek black car pulled up outside their apartment building. The driver opened the door for them without a word. Jackson Montgomery was standing at the window when they entered his office. He turned as the door opened, his expression unreadable. "Mrs. Lopez, Emily, thank you for coming." He gestured to a seating area with leather couches. "Please sit. First, I want to thank you, Emily," he said finally. "The error you found was about to cost my company nearly $500 million. Emily looked up at him solemnly. "That's a lot of money." "Yes, it is." He moved to sit across from them. "After you left, I had my team verify everything. You were absolutely right. A decimal point error in our initial calculations, made months ago, snowballed through our projections." Maria shifted uncomfortably. "We're glad we could help, Mr. Montgomery, but I don't understand why you wanted to see us today." "I had Emily tested last night." "Tested?" Maria stiffened. "Not physically," he clarified quickly. "Academically. After you left, I sent the math problems Emily solved to an educational specialist I know. She said Emily's abilities are extraordinary, far beyond her age level." Montgomery asked Emily to go with his assistant for a few minutes. After she left, his demeanor changed. The polite facade dropped, revealing the sharp businessman beneath. "Mrs. Lopez, your daughter has a gift that comes along perhaps once in a generation. She has what we call a mathematical intuition, an ability to see patterns and relationships in numbers that most trained professionals cannot." Maria's protective instincts flared. "What exactly are you suggesting, Mr. Montgomery?" "I want to offer Emily a full educational scholarship, private school, tutors, advanced placement, whatever she needs to develop her abilities to their fullest potential." Maria felt a chill, despite the office's perfect temperature. "And what would you expect in return?" "First right of refusal when she's ready to enter the workforce, internships during her school years, consulting on specific projects where her abilities might be useful." He shrugged. "Nothing that would interfere with her education or well-being." Maria stood, anger replacing her initial shock. "My daughter is 7 years old, Mr. Montgomery. She's not a commodity to be invested in or a resource to be mined. No, she's a child with extraordinary potential who's currently living in poverty, he countered bluntly. A child who could change the world of mathematics and finance, but who instead is eating generic cereal and using half-broken crayons. Maria flinched, as if slapped. His words cut because they were true. Jackson Montgomery stood at the window of his penthouse, staring out at the city he'd spent a lifetime conquering. 45 stories below, Manhattan pulsed with evening energy, a glittering testament to ambition and power. His power. Until yesterday, when everything he'd built had nearly collapsed because of a misplaced decimal point, saved by a 7-year-old girl in a second-hand dress. His phone buzzed. Thomas Blackwell, his second-in-command and oldest friend. "Tom," Jackson answered, his voice clipped. "We've contained the situation," Thomas reported. "The corrected figures have been verified by 3 independent teams. We're proceeding with a revised investment strategy. And the original error? It was in the initial data set from the Kimura acquisition. Someone on their team transposed a decimal point, and it went unnoticed through all subsequent analyses. Including by our own people," Jackson said coldly. 6 separate reviews, Tom. 6 opportunities to catch a basic arithmetic error. The line went quiet. Then Thomas asked, "Is it true a child found the error?" Jackson tensed. "The cleaning woman's daughter noticed it, yes." "Jesus, Jack, how did that happen?" "She has a gift," he said finally, "a remarkable mathematical intuition." "So what now? You send the kid a teddy bear and move on?" Jackson moved away from the window. "Actually, I've offered her a full educational scholarship and her mother a position as her educational coordinator." The silence on the other end lasted several seconds. "Have you lost your mind?" Thomas finally asked. "Since when do we run a charity for cleaning staff?" "This isn't charity," Jackson snapped. "It's an investment. The child has extraordinary potential. With the right development, she could be an invaluable asset to this company." Thomas's laugh was sharp. "Come on, Jack. One lucky catch doesn't make her a prodigy. And even if she is gifted, she's what, 7? 8? We'll all be retired before she's old enough to contribute anything meaningful." "That's short-sighted thinking, Tom. Exactly the kind that nearly cost us $500 million yesterday. Look, I know the Kimura situation rattled you, but making impulsive decisions about some kid from Queens isn't the answer." "My decision is made," Jackson said firmly. "The girl starts at Westmore Academy next week. I've already spoken to the headmaster." "Westmore? That's where Sarah wanted to send—" Thomas stopped abruptly. Jackson's jaw tightened at the mention of his ex-wife. "This has nothing to do with Sarah or our personal history." "If you say so," Thomas replied, his tone making it clear he thought otherwise. "Just be careful, Jack. Mixing business with whatever this is rarely ends well." After hanging up, Jackson remained motionless, Thomas's words echoing in his mind. Was this about Sarah? About the family they'd never had? The children she'd wanted and he'd been too busy building an empire to consider? No, this was about talent, about potential. About not making the same mistakes his former bosses had made with him. Still, as he returned to the window, Jackson couldn't help but wonder what Sarah would think of his sudden interest in a cleaning woman's gifted child. She'd always accused him of caring more about his company than about people. His intercom buzzed. "Mr. Montgomery, the file you requested on Maria and Emily Lopez has been delivered." Jackson moved to his desk, opening the folder his private investigator had compiled. Maria Lopez, 35, single mother, immigrated legally from Mexico 12 years ago. Husband died in a construction accident when Emily was just a year old. No criminal record. Steady employment history, mostly cleaning jobs. Emily Lopez, 7, born in New York. Excellent academic record despite attending an underfunded public school. Teacher comments noted her exceptional abilities with numbers, but mentioned she was quiet and had difficulty connecting with peers. A photograph slipped from the file, Emily in what appeared to be a school photo, her dark eyes serious, her smile hesitant. Not the confident grin of a child who knew she was special, but the cautious expression of one used to keeping her head down. Jackson recognized that look. He'd worn it himself once, growing up in a blue-collar Pittsburgh neighborhood, hiding his intelligence to avoid standing out. Before he'd learned that standing out was the only way to escape. "I still can't believe this is happening," Maria whispered, staring up at the imposing brick facade of Westmore Academy. Gothic spires reached toward the morning sky, and manicured lawns stretched in every direction. A place for children of privilege, a world away from their apartment in Queens. Emily squeezed her hand, eyes wide behind new glasses, another gift from Montgomery. "It looks like a castle, Mama." 1 week had passed since their meeting in Montgomery's office. 1 week of whirlwind preparations, placement tests that Emily had aced, rushed uniform fittings, mountains of paperwork. And now here they stood on Westmore's campus, Emily in a crisp plaid uniform that had cost more than Maria's monthly rent, about to step into a future Maria had never imagined possible. "Mrs. Lopez, Emily, welcome to Westmore." A woman with a sleek silver bob approached, hand extended. "I'm Dr. Winters, the headmistress. We're delighted to have you joining us." Maria shook her hand, acutely aware of her worn coat and drugstore makeup beside Dr. Winters' tailored suit and pearls. "Thank you for accommodating Emily on such short notice." "Mr. Montgomery is one of our most generous benefactors," Dr. Winters replied, with a practiced smile. "And when he personally vouches for a student's exceptional abilities, we listen." She bent slightly to address Emily. "And your test scores were truly remarkable, young lady. Emily will be joining our third-grade advanced mathematics track, but we've arranged a flexible schedule to accommodate her unique abilities," Dr. Winters explained, leading them inside. "She'll attend regular classes for humanities and sciences, but will have specialized instruction for mathematics with our gifted program coordinator, Mr. Bennett." They walked through marble-floored hallways, adorned with oil paintings, and glass display cases filled with trophies. Students in identical uniforms passed by, some openly staring at the newcomers. "This is Emily's homeroom," Dr. Winters announced, stopping at a classroom door. "Mrs. Abernathy is expecting her." Maria knelt to Emily's level. "You'll be okay, Mija." Emily nodded, though her eyes betrayed her nervousness. "I'll be fine, Mama." "I'll pick you up at 3 o'clock right here," Maria promised, "and you can tell me everything." After a tight hug, Emily squared her small shoulders and followed Dr. Winters into the classroom. The door closed behind them, leaving Maria alone in the hallway, fighting an irrational urge to snatch her daughter back and return to their familiar life. "Mrs. Lopez." Maria turned to find Jackson Montgomery standing a few feet away, impeccable in a tailored suit. "Mr. Montgomery," she said, surprised, "I didn't expect to see you here. I wanted to ensure Emily's first day went smoothly." He gestured toward the main hall. "Shall we? The orientation is about to begin." As they walked, Maria felt the stares of passing parents, curious, evaluating, some openly disapproving. She lifted her chin, refusing to be intimidated. "Everyone's wondering who you are," Montgomery remarked quietly. "You mean they're wondering what the cleaning lady is doing at Westmore?" Maria replied. Montgomery's mouth quirked in what might have been respect. "Perhaps, but by next week they'll be wondering how their children can keep up with Emily instead." The orientation passed in a blur of information. Afterward, Montgomery guided her to the headmistress's office for a private meeting. "Emily's schedule has been arranged to maximize her mathematical development while ensuring a well-rounded education," Dr. Winters explained, sliding a folder across her desk. "Mr. Bennett will assess her abilities this week and develop a customized curriculum." Montgomery spoke up. I've also arranged for Emily to meet weekly with Dr. Eliza Chen, a child psychologist who specializes in gifted children. She'll help Emily navigate the emotional aspects of her acceleration. Maria looked at him in surprise. This was the first she'd heard of a psychologist. Children with exceptional abilities often struggle with feeling different, Montgomery explained, catching her expression. Dr. Chen can help prevent isolation and develop healthy coping mechanisms. As they left the headmistress's office, Montgomery checked his watch. I have a meeting downtown. My driver can take you to the Montgomery building to complete your employment paperwork, unless you'd prefer to do that another day. Today is fine, Maria replied. The sooner I understand my new responsibilities, the better. Thomas Blackwell tapped his Mont Blanc pen against the polished conference table, barely concealing his impatience. The quarterly review meeting had dragged on for nearly 3 hours, and Jackson had missed most of it, arriving late and now typing on his phone instead of focusing on the Asian market projections being presented. This was becoming a pattern. For 3 weeks now, Jackson had been distracted, delegating critical decisions and disappearing for hours without explanation. The rumors were spreading. Montgomery was losing his edge. Montgomery was having a midlife crisis. Montgomery was being manipulated by the cleaning lady whose kid had gotten lucky with the Kimura data. That last one bothered Thomas most because it seemed increasingly plausible. "Thank you, Andrews," Jackson said, as the presentation concluded. "Send me the complete analysis by end of day." He stood, effectively ending the meeting. "Thomas, a word in my office." "You've been checking your watch every 5 minutes," Thomas remarked as they entered Jackson's office. "Hot date?" Jackson didn't smile. "Emily Lopez has her first session with the mathematics research team today. I want to review the initial assessment." Thomas closed the door firmly behind them. "Jesus, Jack. You're blowing off acquisition meetings to watch a second grader do arithmetic." "Third grader," Jackson corrected, "and she's already doing algebra at a high school level, according to her tutors." "That's great," Thomas said, not bothering to hide his sarcasm. "Maybe she can join the board next month." "You have something to say, Tom?" "You're damn right I do." Thomas moved closer. "You've installed the cleaning lady in an executive office. You're skipping critical meetings for a child's tutoring sessions. The entire company is talking, Jack. This doesn't look like mentorship. It looks like you've lost your mind. Since when do you care about office gossip?" "Since it started affecting our stock price." Thomas tossed a financial report onto the desk. "We're down 3 points this week. Investors are nervous because you seem distracted and erratic." "Market fluctuations. It'll correct." "It's not just the market," Thomas pressed. "The Cheng deal is stalling because you missed 2 calls with their CEO. The London office needs decisions on the restructuring that you've delayed twice. And now I hear you've authorized a special research project with the Lopez girl, using company resources." Jackson's expression hardened. "Emily Lopez isn't an intern. She's potentially the most gifted mathematical mind of her generation." "Based on what? Finding 1 error and some good test scores?" Thomas shook his head. "Even if she is exceptional, she's years, decades, away from contributing anything meaningful to this company. That's short-sighted thinking." "It's realistic thinking," Thomas countered. "Something you used to be known for." "You're not seeing the big picture, Tom." "Then explain it to me. Because from where I stand, you're jeopardizing the company we built together over some savior fantasy about a cleaning lady's kid." Jackson spun back, eyes flashing with rare anger. "Careful, Tom." "No, you be careful," Thomas shot back. "The board is asking questions, serious questions about your judgment lately. Do you understand what that means?" After Jackson left, Thomas remained in the office, staring at the door with a mixture of frustration and concern. In 3 decades, he'd never seen Jackson like this. fixated on something to the exclusion of the business that had always been his primary focus. Thomas moved to Jackson's desk, noticing a folder left behind. The psychological assessment of Emily Lopez. As Jackson's business partner with shared access to company files, Thomas felt justified in reviewing the document. The report detailed Emily's exceptional mathematical abilities alongside observations about her emotional development. The psychologist noted subject displays remarkable pattern recognition and quantitative reasoning, scoring in the 99th percentile for her age group. However, she also shows signs of anxiety related to her rapid advancement and the pressure to perform. Thomas was about to close the folder when he noticed a handwritten note clipped to the final page in Jackson's distinctive script. Reminds me of Sarah at that age. Same intensity, same intuitive understanding of numerical relationships. Thomas stared at the note, a cold realization washing over him. Sarah, Jackson's ex-wife. The brilliant mathematician who had left him after 10 years of marriage when it became clear children weren't in their future, not because they couldn't have them, but because Jackson had always prioritized building the company over starting a family. The divorce had been finalized just over a year ago, leaving Jackson more driven and isolated than ever, until a gifted child with a mathematical mind like Sarah's had appeared in his office. Emily stared at the complex equation on the whiteboard, conscious of the adults watching her intently. Dr. Maxwell, the head of Montgomery Investments' quantitative analysis team, had presented it as a challenge, something his junior analysts typically needed 20 minutes to solve. She closed her eyes, letting the numbers arrange themselves in her mind. When she opened them, the solution was clear. X equals 17. 38, she said confidently, but only if you assume the market follows a normal distribution. If you use a Cauchy distribution instead, there's no finite solution. Silence fell over the conference room. Dr. Maxwell blinked, then quickly checked his tablet. That's correct, both observations. He exchanged glances with the other researchers. Emily, how did you know about different statistical distributions? That's graduate-level statistics. Emily shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. I read about them in a book Mr. Jackson gave me. And you understood the implications immediately? Another researcher asked. Numbers just make sense to me, Emily replied simply. When they're wrong, I can feel it, like when music is out of tune. The conference room door opened, and Jackson Montgomery entered, followed by Emily's mother. Emily immediately brightened. Mama! Mr. Jackson! Did you see me solve the hard problem? We caught the end, Maria said, smiling warmly. You're doing wonderfully, Mia. Jackson addressed the research team. Report? Dr. Maxwell stepped forward. Mr. Montgomery, in my 30 years in mathematics education and research, I've never seen anything like this. Emily's intuitive understanding of complex mathematical relationships is, well, extraordinary doesn't quite cover it. Quantify extraordinary, Jackson pressed. She's solving problems at a college undergraduate level at minimum, Maxwell replied. Her spatial reasoning and pattern recognition are off the charts. With the right development, she could be publishing original mathematical research before she finishes high school. As the adults continued talking, Emily returned to her drawing, not random doodles, but a complex fractal pattern. Numbers had always been her friends, long before people were. They were predictable, reliable, beautiful in their patterns and relationships, unlike people who were confusing and often mean. At her old school, being good at math had made her a target. Brainiac, show-off, teacher's pet. The names had hurt, but not as much as the isolation. No one wanted to play with the weird girl who could calculate faster than a calculator. Her new school was different, but not better. The other kids were polite but distant, intimidated by her abilities and her unusual status as Mr. Montgomery's special project. They whispered when she left regular classes for her advanced mathematics sessions. Emily didn't know which was worse, being bullied or being treated like a curiosity. "Emily?" Her mother's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "We're finished for today, Mija. Time to go home." In the elevator, Emily noticed her mother was unusually quiet. "Are you okay, Mama?" Maria seemed to shake herself from deep thoughts. "Yes, Mija. Just tired." She smoothed Emily's hair. "You were amazing today. I'm so proud of you." "Even though you don't understand what I was doing?" Emily asked innocently. A flash of something hurt, worry, crossed Maria's face before she masked it. Especially then. It takes courage to excel at something difficult, whether others understand it or not. Later that evening, after Emily had finished her homework, she found her mother sitting alone, in the dark living room, staring at her phone. "Mama," Emily approached cautiously. "Is something wrong?" Maria quickly put her phone down. "No, Mija, just thinking." She patted the couch beside her. "Come sit with me for a minute." "Emily," Maria began carefully, "I want you to know that whatever happens, I will always put your happiness first. Not your mathematics abilities, not what Mr. Montgomery or anyone else wants from you. Your happiness." Emily looked up, confused by her mother's serious tone. "I know, Mama. If ever you want to stop the special classes or change schools or just go back to how things were, you only have to tell me. Understand?" As Emily drifted off to sleep that night, her mind sifted through the day's events. The pride on Dr. Maxwell's face, the pleased satisfaction in Mr. Jackson's eyes, the worried furrow in her mother's brow that never quite disappeared these days. Something was happening that she didn't fully understand, something beyond mathematics and scholarships and new opportunities. What she didn't know was that while she slept, Maria Lopez sat at their kitchen table, staring at a text message from a number she didn't recognize. "Mrs. Lopez, this is Thomas Blackwell, Mr. Montgomery's business partner. We need to talk, privately. There are things about Jackson's interest in your daughter that you should know. Meet me tomorrow, 9 a.m. Westfield Coffee Shop on 23rd Street. Come alone." Maria stared at the message for a long time before finally responding, "I'll be there." The Westfield Coffee Shop was busy with the morning rush when Maria arrived, precisely at 9. She spotted Thomas Blackwell immediately, his expensive suit and commanding presence marking him as out of place among the casual breakfast crowd. "Mrs. Lopez," he greeted, rising as she approached. "Thank you for coming." "It's Ms.," Maria corrected, sliding into the booth across from him. "And I'm here because your message concerned me, not because I appreciate cryptic texts from strangers." Thomas's eyebrows rose slightly at her directness. "Fair enough." He pushed a coffee toward her. "I took the liberty." Maria left it untouched. "What's this about, Mr. Blackwell? What should I know about Jackson's interest in my daughter?" Thomas studied her for a moment. "You're not what I expected." "Let me guess," Maria said evenly. "You expected someone desperate and grateful? Someone easily manipulated by the promise of opportunities for her child?" She leaned forward. "I may be a single mother with limited resources, Mr. Blackwell, but I've been protecting my daughter for 7 years. I can spot threats, whether they come from schoolyard bullies or corporate executives." A hint of respect flickered across Thomas's face. "Then we understand each other." He lowered his voice. "Has Jackson told you about his ex-wife, Sarah, only that they divorced last year? Did he mention she's a brilliant mathematician, that they split partly because he prioritized the company over having children, that by the time he changed his mind, she'd reached her limit?" Maria felt a cold sensation spreading through her chest. "No." Thomas slid a folder across the table. I found this in his office, read the note. Maria opened the folder, finding a psychological assessment of Emily with Jackson's handwritten note. Reminds me of Sarah at that age. Same intensity, same intuitive understanding of numerical relationships. Her hands trembled slightly as she closed the folder. What are you suggesting? I think Jackson's interest in Emily goes beyond talent development or business investment, Thomas said quietly. I think he sees her as the child he might have had with Sarah, the family he rejected and now regrets losing. Maria's mind raced, connecting dots she'd previously dismissed. Jackson's personal involvement, his intensity around Emily, the way he sometimes stared at her with an almost hungry expression. Why tell me this? She finally asked. What do you gain? Frankly, I'm worried about the company. Jackson's distracted, making impulsive decisions, rearranging priorities around a child who won't contribute meaningfully for at least a decade. Thomas sighed. But I'm also concerned about Jackson himself. He's my oldest friend, and this behavior isn't like him. And what about concern for Emily? For how being the focus of a billionaire's psychological projection might affect her. Thomas had the grace to look uncomfortable. That too. Despite what you might think, I'm not heartless. Maria stared into her untouched coffee. What do you expect me to do with this information? Be careful, Thomas said simply. Watch for signs that Jackson's interest is becoming inappropriate or excessive, and consider your options if you need to distance your daughter from this situation. As she turned to leave, Thomas called after her. One more thing. Jackson has scheduled a press conference next week about Emily. Maria stopped cold. What? He's announcing a new educational initiative for gifted children from disadvantaged backgrounds, with Emily as the public face. Thomas's expression was grim. He didn't tell you, did he? No, Maria whispered. He didn't. She left the coffee shop with her mind in turmoil. The string of coincidences that had seemed like miracles suddenly appeared in a more sinister light. Not opportunities freely given, but pieces in a psychological game she hadn't consented to playing. Emily stared at the equation on Mr. Bennett's whiteboard, feeling that familiar tingle in her mind, the one that came when numbers were about to reveal their secrets. Around her, the other students in the gifted program fidgeted and whispered, but Emily remained motionless, lost in the dance of variables and constants. Anyone? Mr. Bennett prompted, looking around the classroom. This is graduate-level work, but I thought... The solution set is empty, Emily said quietly. Mr. Bennett turned to her, eyebrows raised. Can you explain why, Emily? She approached the board, pointing to a specific term. This creates a constraint that contradicts this other condition. It's like trying to find a number that's both greater than 5 and less than 3 at the same time. It can't exist. A heavy silence fell over the classroom. Emily felt the stares of the other students, some impressed, others resentful, all distancing. Remarkable insight, Mr. Bennett said, genuine admiration in his voice. Emily has identified a subtle contradiction that makes this problem unsolvable, something that often trips up college students. As Emily returned to her seat, she heard the whispers, teacher's pet. Montgomery's charity case. Freak. The words stung, but she'd grown accustomed to them. In the 3 weeks since she'd started at Westmore, the pattern had become clear. Her mathematical abilities impressed the adults and alienated the children. When the bell rang, Emily gathered her books slowly, in no hurry to face the lunchroom alone again. Emily? Mr. Bennett called as the other students filed out. A moment, please. She approached his desk cautiously. Are you happy here at Westmore? He asked. Emily considered lying, then decided against it. The classes are good. I'm learning a lot. But no one talks to me, she admitted, except to ask for homework help sometimes. Mr. Bennett nodded thoughtfully. Exceptional abilities often create social challenges. It can be lonely being different. I know, Emily said simply. I was like you once, Mr. Bennet said, surprising her. Not as gifted, certainly, but advanced enough to be isolated. It does get better, Emily. You'll find your people eventually, others who understand how your mind works. He handed her a worn book, Hidden Patterns, The Mathematics of Nature, its cover showing the spiral of a nautilus shell. This helped me when I was feeling alone, he explained. It reminded me that mathematics isn't just abstract symbols, it's the language of the universe. Emily clutched the book, oddly moved by the gesture. Thank you. One more thing, Mr. Bennet said as she turned to leave. Mr. Montgomery has arranged for you to participate in the National Mathematics Challenge next month. It's usually for high school students, but he's received special permission for your entry. Emily froze. A competition? Yes, with considerable media attention, I understand. Mr. Bennet studied her reaction. Is that something you'd want to do? Was it? Emily wasn't sure. The thought of solving challenging problems excited her, but performing under pressure, with cameras and strangers watching, that made her stomach twist. I'd need to talk to my mum first, she said finally. Of course, Mr. Bennet nodded, though I believe Mr. Montgomery has already begun making arrangements. The lunchroom was chaotic when Emily arrived. She scanned the tables, looking for a quiet corner where she could read her new book and avoid attention. Emily, a voice called, over here. Surprised, Emily turned to see Zoe Chen, one of her classmates, waving from a table near the window. Cautiously, Emily approached. Hi. Sit with us, Zoe offered, gesturing to the open seat beside her. Two other girls from their grade watched with curious expressions. That was really impressive in Mr. Bennet's class, Zoe said. How did you know the problem couldn't be solved? Emily shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. I just saw it. The numbers. They talk to me sometimes. One of them, Madison, leaned forward. Is it true you're Mr. Montgomery's special project? That he's paying for everything? Emily tensed, so that explained the sudden interest. He's helping with my education, she said carefully. My dad says he's using you for publicity, Madison continued, that there's going to be a big announcement about you next week. What? Emily blinked in confusion. No, that's not. I heard he's starting a whole foundation with you as the poster child, the third girl added. My mum's on the school board, and she said it's all anyone's talking about. Emily's appetite vanished. A foundation? An announcement? Her mother hadn't mentioned anything about this. Absolutely not. Maria's voice was steady but firm as she faced Jackson across his massive desk. I won't allow you to put Emily in front of cameras and reporters without consulting me first. Jackson leaned back, surprise evident in his expression. In the month since they'd begun working together, Maria had been cooperative, even deferential. This direct challenge was unexpected. The announcement benefits everyone, he argued. The foundation will help hundreds of gifted children from backgrounds similar to Emily's. Her story is inspirational. Her story is her own, Maria cut him off, not yours to share with the world. She's 7 years old, Jackson, a child, not a publicity tool. This isn't about publicity, Jackson insisted, rising from his chair. It's about creating opportunities, about changing the system that nearly failed Emily, that fails countless gifted children from disadvantaged backgrounds every day. Noble goals, Maria acknowledged, but your methods are unacceptable. Making decisions about my daughter's public exposure without even discussing it with me. Having her compete in a high school mathematics competition, where does it end? Jackson paced behind his desk, frustration evident in every movement. I thought you understood what we're building here. Emily's abilities are extraordinary. They deserve to be nurtured, challenged, celebrated. I agree. but not at the cost of her childhood, her privacy, or her emotional well-being. Maria met his gaze unflinchingly. Emily is already struggling socially at Westmore. The other children resent her special status. Adding public attention will only isolate her further. Children are always cruel to those who are different, Jackson dismissed. That won't change regardless of what we do. Better she learns to embrace her uniqueness than hide it. Is that what this is about? Maria asked quietly. Teaching Emily to be different? To stand apart? Or is it about recreating what you lost with Sarah? Jackson went completely still. What did you say? Your ex-wife, Maria continued, heart-pounding, but voice steady. The brilliant mathematician who left because you chose your company over family. Is Emily her replacement? The gifted child you never had? Who told you about Sarah? Jackson's voice was dangerously quiet. Does it matter? What matters is whether it's true. Maria stood her ground despite his imposing presence. Am I raising my daughter or helping you build the family you regret losing? Jackson turned away, moving to the window. For several long moments he said nothing. You have no idea what you're talking about, he finally said, his voice controlled. My interest in Emily is professional. She has a gift that deserves development. And the note comparing her to Sarah at the same age, was that professional too? Jackson spun back, eyes flashing. You've been going through my personal papers? No, but others have. Maria wouldn't betray Thomas, but she needed Jackson to understand she wasn't operating in the dark anymore. I'm not naive, Jackson. I know opportunities like these come with strings attached. I just need to understand what those strings are before Emily gets tangled in them. Something shifted in Jackson's expression, a crack in the controlled facade, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability beneath. Sarah was gifted with mathematics, he admitted quietly. She saw patterns where others saw only chaos, like Emily does. He moved back to his desk, sinking into his chair. And yes, I see the similarities. That doesn't mean my interest in Emily is inappropriate. But it's personal, Maria pressed, beyond business investment or talent development. Jackson met her gaze directly. Would that be so terrible? To care about her as more than an asset to my company, to want to give her the opportunities I was denied as a child, the family support I never had. The raw honesty in his voice caught Maria off guard. She'd expected denials or cold dismissal, not this glimpse of genuine emotion. No, she conceded. Caring isn't terrible. But making decisions about her life without consulting me is. Pushing her into the spotlight for your foundation without considering her feelings is. Using her to fill the holes in your life might be well-intentioned, but it's still wrong, Jackson. Tell me again how you solved it, Dr. Maxwell urged, his expression a mixture of amazement and disbelief. Emily stared at the complex probability problem on the whiteboard, one she'd solved in minutes after the research team had struggled with it for days. I just saw it, she explained hesitantly, like connecting dots that were already there. A deuce. But the approach you used, another researcher pressed, it's similar to Bayesian inference, but with modifications that, well, frankly, I've never seen before. Emily shrugged, uncomfortable with their intense focus. 2 months into their sessions, the mathematics team had moved from testing her abilities to actively challenging them, presenting her with unsolved problems, watching in astonishment as she found pathways through mathematical thickets they'd considered impenetrable. Where did you learn this? Dr. Maxwell asked, not for the first time. Even with your intuitive understanding, these techniques are sophisticated, advanced. Emily looked down at her hands. The question had been asked repeatedly over the past weeks, and she'd always deflected it. But the researchers were growing more insistent, and Mr. Jackson was in the observation room today, watching through the one-way glass. My father, she said finally, so quietly they had to lean in to hear. Your father. Dr. Maxwell exchanged glances with his colleagues. I thought he passed away when you were very young. He did, Emily confirmed, but he left notebooks, full of numbers and equations and problems. The researchers fell silent, absorbing this new information. Your mother never mentioned these notebooks, one said carefully. She doesn't know I have them, Emily admitted. I found them in a box under her bed when I was 5. She never talks about my father, so I didn't tell her. Dr. Maxwell pulled a chair closer to Emily. These notebooks, they taught you mathematics? Emily nodded. At first, I just liked looking at the patterns. Then I started understanding what they meant. It was like he was teaching me, even though he wasn't there. Your father was a mathematician? Another researcher asked. I don't know what he was, Emily replied honestly, but his notebooks are full of beautiful things. Equations that make music when you solve them, numbers that dance together in perfect patterns. Dr. Maxwell cleared his throat. Emily, would it be possible for us to see these notebooks? She hesitated. The notebooks felt private, a connection to the father she'd never known. But she was also proud of them, eager to share their beauty with people who might understand. Maybe, she said finally, but I'd have to ask my mama first. The door opened and Jackson Montgomery entered, his expression unreadable. He'd clearly been listening from the observation room. That's enough for today, he announced. Emily, your mother is waiting for you in the lobby. As Jackson escorted her to the elevator, Emily felt a strange tension in the air. The notebooks had always been her secret, her private connection to a father who existed only in her mother's brief, pained mentions and in the elegant mathematics he'd left behind. Now that secret was out. And somehow, Emily sensed, everything had changed. In the lobby, Maria greeted her with a warm hug. How was your session, Mija? Before Emily could answer, Jackson intervened. Remarkable as always. Emily demonstrated some fascinating approaches today. In fact, we'd like to continue the conversation, perhaps dinner at my penthouse this evening. For both of you. Maria looked surprised by the invitation. In the weeks since their confrontation about the press conference, Jackson had been respectful of the boundaries Maria had established, maintaining a more professional distance. This is important, Jackson insisted, his tone making it clear this wasn't merely a social invitation. I've made reservations at 7. My driver will pick you up at 6:30. What happened in there? She asked Emily once Jackson was gone. Emily bit her lip. I told them about Papa's notebooks, the ones with all the mathematics. Maria went completely still. What notebooks, Emily? In that moment, Emily realized her mother truly didn't know, had never discovered the box she'd carefully preserved all these years. The ones under your bed, Emily admitted quietly. In the blue box, with the silver stars. I found them when I was little. They're full of equations and problems. That's how I learned so much math. Maria's face drained of color. Dios mio, she whispered. You've been reading Miguel's research all this time. The monarch algorithm, Jackson said, staring at the open notebook on Thomas's desk. I should have known. Thomas watched his oldest friend warily. They were alone in Thomas's office, neutral territory for this confrontation. On one side of the building, Maria and Emily waited with Montgomery Investments' legal counsel. On the other, Jackson's security team stood ready, awaiting his orders. You couldn't have known, Thomas replied carefully. Miguel Lopez died 6 years ago. His connection to Emily was coincidental. Was it? Jackson's laugh was bitter. The daughter of the man who stole $5 million and our proprietary trading algorithm just happens to end up in my office, spotting an error in our financial projections. That's quite a coincidence. Maria had no idea, Thomas insisted. She knew Miguel had done something illegal, but not what or who it affected. She's been raising Emily alone, cleaning offices to survive. This isn't some elaborate revenge plot. Jackson turned another page in Miguel Lopez's notebook. his expression darkening as he recognized more elements of the algorithm his company had spent millions developing. The same algorithm that had mysteriously appeared in a competitor's trading system a decade ago, after Miguel had briefly worked as a junior analyst at Montgomery Investments. "The girl's been studying these for years," he said quietly, "absorbing our intellectual property without even knowing it. She's 7 years old, Jack. She's not a corporate spy. No, but she's been shaped by stolen knowledge." Jackson closed the notebook abruptly. "Knowledge that rightfully belongs to this company." Thomas moved to stand between Jackson and the door. "What are you planning to do?" "What do you think? Reclaim our property, all of it, the notebooks, the algorithm, the derivative work." "And Emily? Maria? What about them?" Jackson's expression hardened. "They've benefited from stolen intellectual property long enough. The scholarship, the position, all of it ends today. That's vindictive, and you know it," Thomas argued. "The child is innocent in this, and her abilities go far beyond anything in those notebooks." "Do they?" Jackson challenged. "Or is she simply regurgitating stolen techniques she memorized? Techniques her father took from us before she was even born." Thomas studied his friend, seeing something he rarely witnessed in Jackson Montgomery: raw, unfiltered emotion overriding rational judgment. "This isn't about the algorithm anymore, is it?" he asked quietly. "It's about feeling betrayed. Again." Jackson stiffened. "Don't psychoanalyze me, Tom. Then stop acting irrationally. Yes, Miguel Lopez stole from us. Yes, these notebooks contain elements of our proprietary work. But punishing his widow and child won't undo that theft. It will only create a new injustice. They need to be held accountable. For what? Maria knew nothing about the specifics of Miguel's crimes. And Emily? She's a child who found mathematical beauty in her dead father's notebooks. The only crime she's committed is being gifted enough to understand them." A soft knock interrupted them. Thomas's assistant opened the door just enough to pass him a folded note before disappearing again. Thomas read it, then handed it to Jackson. "From Emily," he said simply. Jackson unfolded the paper. In careful handwriting, Emily had written, "Dear Mr. Jackson, I'm sorry about my father's notebooks. I didn't know they had things that belonged to your company. I just thought they were beautiful mathematics. If I did something wrong by learning from them, I'm truly sorry. Emily Lopez." Below this message, she'd drawn a complex fractal pattern, one that Jackson recognized from Montgomery Investments' original research into market fluctuations, but extended and enhanced in ways their team had never explored. "She's extended the pattern," he murmured, tracing the intricate design with his finger. "Taken it further than we ever did." "Because she sees mathematics differently than anyone else," Thomas said quietly. "Even her father. Even us." Jackson stared at the drawing for a long moment, conflict evident in his expression. Then, almost imperceptibly, something shifted. "I want to speak with them," he said finally. "Together. No lawyers." 1 year later, Emily adjusted her glasses nervously as she stood at the podium, facing the audience gathered for the first annual Montgomery Foundation Conference on Educational Access. At 8 years old, almost 9, as she regularly reminded everyone, she was by far the youngest speaker on the program. "Mathematics is a universal language," she began, her voice soft but clear in the microphone. "It doesn't care where you come from, what you look like, or how much money your family has. It only cares if you're listening to what the numbers are telling you." In the front row, Maria watched her daughter with pride, noting how much Emily had grown in confidence over the past year. Gone was the painfully shy child who'd hidden behind her mother at social functions. This Emily still preferred numbers to people, but she'd learned to share her passion with others, to translate the beauty she saw in mathematics for those who couldn't see it naturally. Beside Maria sat Jackson Montgomery, his expression thoughtful, as he listened to Emily's presentation. Their relationship had evolved into something neither of them had initially expected. Not friendship exactly, but a mutual respect built on honest confrontation and clear boundaries. "When I was very young," Emily continued, "I found mathematics in my father's notebooks. I didn't know then that some of what I was learning came from other people's work. I just knew it was beautiful." She glanced briefly at Jackson. "I've learned since that knowledge has origins and ownership, that ideas have value beyond their beauty. But I've also learned that the most important thing about knowledge is how you use it." Jackson nodded almost imperceptibly, acknowledging the subtle reference to their complicated history. The confrontation in Thomas's office a year ago had marked a turning point, painful but necessary. Jackson had stepped back, creating healthier boundaries while still providing opportunities for Emily's development. Maria had gained genuine independence in her role at the foundation, using her experience to ensure that support for gifted children from disadvantaged backgrounds came with the practical assistance their families needed. And Emily? She had flourished in the more balanced environment, excelling academically while slowly developing social connections with other mathematically gifted children. She still worked with Montgomery Investments' research team occasionally, but on clearly defined projects with transparent agreements about intellectual property. "In conclusion," Emily said, approaching the end of her speech, "mathematics taught me that the most elegant solution is rarely the most obvious one. Sometimes you have to look beyond the standard approaches, beyond what everyone else is seeing." She smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her serious face. "The same is true for education. The Montgomery Foundation is finding new pathways for students who don't fit traditional models, and that makes all the difference for children like me." The audience applauded warmly as Emily stepped away from the podium. She made her way back to Maria, accepting a proud hug before sliding into her seat. As the next speaker took the stage, Jackson leaned closer to them. "Thomas and I would like to discuss something with you both after the conference. A new research initiative we think Emily might find interesting." Maria raised an eyebrow. "Business or education related?" "Both, actually," Jackson replied. "A collaborative project between the Foundation and Montgomery Investments' quantitative analysis team, completely transparent, with clear parameters." He smiled slightly. "I've learned my lesson about making proposals without proper consultation. Their relationship would never be simple. Too much history, too many complex emotions lay between them. But they had found a workable balance, a way to collaborate that benefited Emily without compromising Maria's authority as her mother or crossing the boundaries that kept Jackson's interest appropriate and professional. Like the elegant mathematical proofs she loved, Emily's life had found a certain balance, not the simplistic happy ending of children's stories, but something more complex and ultimately more satisfying, a dynamic equilibrium that allowed for growth, change, and ongoing discovery. Emily turned her attention back to the speaker, her mind already racing ahead to the new project Jackson had mentioned. Whatever it involved, she would approach it with clearer understanding of who she was and what she wanted, not just a mathematical prodigy or the daughter of a man who had made grave mistakes, but Emily Lopez, a girl with extraordinary gifts and the freedom to use them on her own terms. That, she reflected as she jotted down a new pattern emerging in her thoughts, was the most elegant